Hi, Capricorn Sun and Rising. Welcome to your November 2023 Astro Update. It's Rena here. Ooh, so I'm recording this almost a week after Pluto went direct in your sign. And I think that there may have been a sea change of sorts with Capricorn individuals. Even the moon in Capricorn, I don't often address these videos to people's moon signs, but some people do listen for their moon sign. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of you who have, specifically the sun or the ascendant in Capricorn, if the last several months have been quite intense and quite different than what you were experiencing prior to May when Capricorn went retrograde. No, actually, it would be more like when it went back into Capricorn. I don't know when that was. I think it was in July, but it could have been June, somewhere around there. And I think that this can be a lot more freeing now that Pluto is direct, even though it's still going to be in your sign for a little bit. The reason I say that is because with the retrograde, there was more of that introspection. And with Pluto, it's like an excavation. It's not even just like, oh, I'm going to reflect on my life. It's like I'm going to pick myself apart. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that because that's coming from the October time frame, which also is eclipse season. As I record this, we've just had the solar eclipse in Libra. Now, Libra is a cardinal sign like yours, so it's hitting one of those angular houses. In this case, it's hitting the 10th house of career, which is the house that you rule in astrology. So, and also the South Node was conjunct with that eclipse. So there was actually this kind of karmic cleanup that was connected to it rather than just this straightforward moving energy. And that could, to me, that's not necessarily bad because, when you're starting something new and you don't have this sense of where you've been, it might not be something that you're starting with a clear sense of authenticity or what have you. Sometimes people start new things for ego-based reasons or things like that. And I really feel like this is something that is coming from deep within you. And as I record this, the Taurus lunar eclipse has not occurred. So if you're listening in October during eclipse season, that's going to be on October 28th, and that's going to be in fellow Earth sign Taurus, and that will be in your 5th house of committed partnership. So that can be it's going to be at 5 degrees of Taurus. That can be very emotional but I mean, it could be very healing because if you have been hung up on someone that you're not necessarily in a relationship with, and it almost feels like a blockage, it almost feels like some kind of energetic, cords being snarled. You know how they say energetic cords that you have to cut? Well, this would be like a big octopus. So if that's the case, this can kind of release you from that emotional bondage, if you will, because certainly sometimes people get caught up in a relationship that might not have worked out, but they, even though they're not no longer in that relationship, they still have their feelings kind of like plugged into that other person's socket. And it can like drain a person energetically. It can make it hard for them to want to move on. I mean, I think we've all had experiences, if not with ourselves, but with people that we know who had a hard time when they broke up with someone to just like get into a new relationship, and they were kind of still caught up in that past relationship. So, I mean, that's one possibility. It could even be love at first sight. So just the best thing you can do is to be conscious, not just at the time of the eclipses, because actually they can occur before the date or after the date in terms of the effects, but just be conscious about your life as a whole. Pay attention to signs and symbols. You know, today I was out and about and I felt like these strangers reached out to me, and I really noticed it. It was very odd to me. I had it happen twice today. And I was saying, why is this occurring? I asked myself questions like, what does this mean? This means something. It's possible that I'm just completely delusional, but I don't think so. I believe in synchronicity. I think when things are happening more than once, or, repeated numbers, that there's something that it means. Now, we may not get it right in terms of the interpretation, but at least we're aware, at least we're paying attention. So on the 4th, Saturn turns direct at 0 degrees of Pisces. Saturn is your ruler, Capricorn, so this makes that even more significant. And Pisces is your 3rd house, which is the 3rd house of communication. It's the house of teaching and learning. You may have had some kind of snafu here. This is the house of social media. There may have been something connected with social media that made you stop in your tracks. Back in, I believe it was June, mid-June, when Saturn went retrograde. And it may have been that if you had been maintaining a social media accounts, working on a website, whatever, you stopped and you kind of were like, okay, I can't, you didn't feel like continuing it. And sometimes, I mean, when we honor our feelings, that's great. I know that Capricorns are more likely to push through any resistance. But if you felt compelled to kind of just sit back and, I don't know about chill, but at least just put it on pause, now is the time to see whether or not it's something you want to carry into the future. Because, truth be told, if we're talking specifically about social media, things have changed. If you're somebody who remembers, maybe you had a website 10 years ago, there are people that probably conduct online business without having a website. I was just having a discussion with someone, and they asked, do you have to have a website? And I was kind of like, well, I think it's kind of sketched out not to, or unprofessional not to. But you know what? The truth is that I'm wrong about that. I mean, you could just have an online ordering page and not have to go through all the rigmarole of something like that. And it really doesn't matter. I have a feeling most people don't look at every aspect of a person's website. And so if you just cut to the chase, maybe it's actually good for sales, so that people don't have to navigate through all these different, pages or what have you. But anyway, some theme about this, if you have been a teacher or you're in the midst of training to be a teacher, maybe, student teaching kind of put you off a bit. And, it's very interesting when we apply what we've learned to real life experiences that there can be disillusionment. Um, that's what the whole apprenticeship is about, is to, rather than just jump right into the fray, kind of get your toes wet and really learn your craft before you just kind of totally plunge into it. But there's always the risk that you're not going to like what you find when you get into that real world. So now things should start to kind of shake out, and you'll see whether or not something that you have been working on is really for you. This is a house, I think I said teaching and learning. It can be any kind of writing project or communication, the media, social media, and things like that. Even if you have been taking meditation courses, Saturn, the third house, to me is about disciplining the mind. And maybe you rebelled against it for some reason. But now you can decide how you're going to move forward. On the 8th, Venus goes into Libra. So Venus goes into that 10th house of career. That's good, because that's also the house of authority figures, people who may be above you, your boss, important people career-wise. And what that can mean is that they want to help you. They want to make your road easier to success. Venus in this house could be getting a raise. It could be favorable kind of opinions from the public, people liking you, popularity. On the 13th, new moon at 20 degrees of Scorpio, and this is going to be that third house again. I'm sorry, not the third house, the 11th house. And actually, this is where the sun is at. A new moon is when the sun is in conjunction with the moon. So it's that concentrated energy in one sign. And this is the house of friendships and groups. You did have a lunar eclipse here back in May. So this is the other side of the story. Maybe you let go of a lot of social commitments or interactions for whatever reason. I would imagine that it had something to do with the direction your life was going in. That's what eclipses are about, this fated situation, And actually, on October 28th, that was the last one in that pair of eclipses, that lunar eclipse in Taurus. So that story is over with, and now we are in a new day. Maybe there are new people to come into your life to take over from those old associations. The 11th house is I said friendships and groups, but it's also your hopes and wishes. And this can be something that sees you breathing new life into some of your goals. Maybe you're creating new goals for yourself, new things that you want to accomplish. Actually, this is what they say you're supposed to do when you have a new moon in that 11th house. You're supposed to make 40 wishes. I think I tried to do that once and I couldn't come up with 40 things. It was just like, that's pretty intense. But you know something? They don't have to be major goals. They can be things that are easy to tick off of a list. You might want to try it. You never know if it's going to work. And then I think you're supposed to review them every day during that period. Or maybe for the next 40 days, who knows? Because number 4, if you reduce 40 to 4, is about discipline and structure. It's actually connected to your ruler Saturn. So there you go. On the 22nd, the sun goes into Sag, and then not the very next day, but 2 days later, Mars goes into Sagittarius. For Capricorn, this is a sign before you. So this is a 12th house. This can be very disorienting because the 12th house is not practical. You are practical. The 12th house is otherworldly. You are worldly. Mars here can feel very restless, like it has nowhere to go. It's not a surprise that the 12th house can be prisons and hospitals because you can feel like you're like being imprisoned in the sense that, this is the hermit's house and yet you have this active planet here. Best use of this energy, if you feel restless, is Hatha Yoga because it has that spiritual connotation, connection, but it's also physical. Sometimes Mars in the 12th house can be hidden enemies. If you feel like there is some kind of conspiring going on in the workplace, know that this too shall pass. You may be working on something behind the scenes that you don't want to let other people know of in an open way. That's another facet of the 12th house, is that it kind of can be doing things in secret. But if you're going to launch something like a business and you just don't want to really tell other people, maybe you're working for somebody else and you don't want to get penalized for that, this could be a great compromise where you just do things. And then when it's time to launch, it's time to launch. And nobody can kind of poke holes in it or anything like that. Now, here's something interesting. Remember I said about secret enemies? On the 27th, we have a full moon at 4 degrees of Gemini. Gemini is the opposite sign of Sagittarius. So that full moon is going to be in your 6th house, Capricorn. For you, this is your 6th house, and that is the house of Virgo in astrology, which is the house of health and work and coworkers. So full moon can bring out secrets. So hold on to your hat. If you suspect that something is going on behind your back, you may get proof of it by the end of the month. And in some cases, a Capricorn person can say, see ya, because you're done. I don't know how willing Capricorns are to quit, but I do know that you are very self-directed, being a cardinal sign. And I have no doubt that if you did quit, that you would land on your feet like that. If you're in a certain circumstance where that is appropriate, obviously. So the full moon in the 6th house can bring to light maybe a health matter that you have to pay attention to, or an end to a health matter in some cases. It can bring something about your work life to the surface. Maybe you have a realization about what's going on with your work life, and that makes it easier to make your next move. Okay, that's what I have for you, Capricorn. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a private reading, I'm promoting my double readings. I'm promoting a lot of stuff, but these are package deals. My double reading, that's called Deep Dive, is an hour of natal chart analysis and an hour of transits for a special price. I have the Deep Dive Plus, a full-length tarot reading called The Whole Enchilada for a special price as well, and I have standalone readings um, dealing with topics from transits to the natal chart by itself to career readings, which I like to call life path readings more than anything, and relationship readings, all that good stuff. You can find out more information at the link below. I'm at rainamoonastrology.com. Thanks for listening. Bye.